Record. All right. We're recording.
Okay.
And I wanted us to show our mugs,
Mugs.
staging mugs. I've been a little negligent about the coffee chats part of. Who's that artist on yours?
Oh, I can't think of her name. She's a teacher up at the college here at COCC. She's a ceramics professor.
Uh-huh.
Ugh. I'll get her name. I'll send it to you, and then maybe you can link it below.
Yeah, that'd be
She's
cool.
fantastic. She had a big show up there, and Greg, the husband, helped her hang her show, and she gave us this as a
That's a
gift.
great mug.
It's
Yeah.
a great mug because it matches your earrings.
By Katie. These earrings were made by Katie Zimmerman, and I love them because they glow in the dark also.
Those are cool.
And it's really fun when I wear my glasses because, 6 eyes.
Oh my God. Wow, Teresa.
I'm like, too bad I didn't have these in grade school. But anyway, I didn't need glasses then. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Can you tell us who you are and what you do? A little bit
Hi,
about what you do.
Teresa. So, my name is Heather, and what am I? I don't know. I used to be a graphic designer,
Mm-hmm.
motion designer, senior motion designer, and then, uh, and then the COVID hit.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of time to kind of think things through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm moving. I'm still doing motion design, still doing graphic design, still working with feminist groups of women having a voice in design, working for Ben Design. But I think I'm moving into digital artist.
Ooh.
I know I'm making the transition, I think, but slow because food is good.
Yes.
Food is good, and like I can take a certain level of being uncomfortable, and then
Yeah.
there's just a certain point where I don't, I'm kind of over that,
Yeah.
having done it a
Yeah.
lot, which I know you know.
Well, the interesting thing about you too is you've had whole other lives before any of these things that you've mentioned.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and that's really interesting to me, because people are always telling us that oh, you have to choose a thing and that's the thing that you are, and it's not real.
It, the only consistent thing for me, I think, has been like the need to create and be creative in some form.
Yeah.
And in different phases of my life, I wanted to express it differently, partly where I was living, partly what was available to me changed, So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I've done performance art and dance. And oh, a long time ago, I thought I would be a writer. I mean, it just goes on. But what's cool is that then you can take like all that stuff, just like you're doing, where what happens is this really unique, amazing expression, and then you get
Mhm.
to really find ways of integrating stuff, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would like to see a world where people work like that more. I had some
Mm-hmm.
hard lessons too with that it's also important for people to be um it's okay for people to be super focused. I just know I can't live that way. I actually was just teaching a bunch of young engineers writing
Oh,
skills,
whoa.
and yeah, totally different world, and I learned a lot. um
Yeah.
Um, and also, every day I wanted to say, your professor is experiencing cognitive dissonance. Like every single day that I went to teach, I was just like, oh, like you see little ones happening in class, and I'm like, ah! And I won't get into that here. I'm like trying to wrestle with it in some of my writing, but yeah, it's a whole different world I never thought about. And then how do I maneuver myself through that world when I'm in it, you know. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. I don't want to talk about me too much.
You know, I read this great article about this guy. I posted it on Facebook, and he had been in a certain type of design his whole life, and then he
Yeah.
wanted to do like installation stuff, and he was kind of like digital coding hardcore stuff, and he was really intimidated. He was like, I don't know if I want to do this because it's so hard,
Hmm.
but he did it anyway, and he totally changed his trajectory. And I think people shouldn't be afraid. um, there's such a stigma in our society that when you're on a track, you have to stay on that track, you
Yep.
have to succeed at that track, and if you don't, the world is going to fall apart, and people will judge you. Like
Yeah.
if you deviate, or if like failed multiple times over and over, right? But and people have been very cruel, and then also people have been really kind too, so it's just kind of like weeding out that stuff, and
Right.
just keep having people like you in my life that are supportive, and we're kind of doing a similar thing. I'm like, she's doing it, I can do it.
Well, and I feel like I don't know. I feel yeah, absolutely the same. And also like a lot of times like I'm missing the mark. So like every time I like get into like a poo poo place, you're like, hey, check, you could do it. And like there aren't a lot of people that do that. So I really appreciate that a whole lot. It's just yeah, because a lot of people we're all doing our own thing, and I think it's hard sometimes to like give someone a little pound on the shoulder like you're doing great.
It's important, like people don't start off perfect, and
Yeah,
like you, for example, I've been watching your work like really grow, really, really
it's
grow.
growing. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
And in fact, I was working on your interview, and I was looking at some things you posted in your new Patreon page and your new work coming out and the residency you just did and all of it coming together. And I'm seeing something start to form that I hadn't seen in you before. And I was like, wow, damn, look at that. There
Thanks.
goes Tamika. But you don't even know when you're in it, right?
No,
The
what
people
is
on the
happening? Tell
outside
me.
can see it. And that's why it's so important to like, I'm a huge advocate of be kind.
Yeah,
If you see something someone is doing that you like, say it,
yeah,
you know, talk about them. Um, just do what you can in your little COVID sphere to to like help people come up, because it's hard across the board. And if you're an artist right now,
yeah,
it's a shit show.
yep,
Like it is incredibly hard. And it takes so much courage and strength and stamina and personal honesty
yeah,
to be creative. And I'm sure I know you've mentioned this before, is a lot of artists don't feel like they have that choice. If you're an artist, you know it, and you're screwed, and you got
yep.
to figure out how to work, because it I don't know how else to describe it. It's that choiceless choice. Like, you're going to be miserable if you don't.
And I've definitely been on that side of being miserable and not doing it, and just like I mean, especially it especially has been hitting me over the last 5 or 8 years, where like there are a lot of creative things that I haven't been doing to the point where it's hard to get back to them. Um, but I was trying to do some other life instead. And I mean, to be fair, I try to do everything all at once. But like, but it's just like that whole like, how do I feed myself? How do I survive
Mm-hmm.
when, especially, I think a lot of creative folks kind of struggle with like it's really difficult to see sometimes that I really cognitively feel that there is no lack, and it it is difficult to remember that when I'm in the mode of surviving. Does that make sense? And
Oh yeah.
And I've been in survival mode for a while, like so long that even when I'm not in survival mode and don't have to be in survival mode, I'm in survival mode. And so like it's hard to get back to the creative things sometimes, because the wheels are spinning so fast. It's like, no, you don't have to do. And I'm wondering if other people experience that too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm just finishing a project this weekend that I meant to have done 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, sometimes things happen. Like I can estimate the commitment something's going to take, and then maybe it ends up like what just happened. There were a whole series of events I didn't expect. Work came
Right.
in that was bigger and more intense than I thought. Ben Design was a heavier lift than anticipated. Some people, because of COVID, had to take some time away, and then they came back, and I'm waiting for the stuff, and it's like so. I just got to this point during the 2020 where I decided that to just let go, and I know I want to get these things done, and if it's not done today,
Mm.
it's okay. If it's done 3 or 4 days later, it's okay. If people are angry at me because I've been slow to get this done, that's okay.
Yeah.
Uh, there, with everything, there's like this level of patience right now. I think is required. Um, and like today, even I have a pretty awful cold going, and
Oh no.
yeah, I know. I was like, wait, is this but it's just a cold. Um, every cold now, it makes me totally paranoid.
Mm.
And so my energy level was low, and my focus is not as good. And so stuff like we have to let ourselves be human, you know?
Right.
And the guilt thing and the pressure is not good to being creative.
Right. Those times definitely slowed everything down. Like I remember the first 2 months, like I'm used to going so fast and doing all the things.
Yeah.
I had 5 jobs. I was working 7 days a week. I
Holy
was
crap.
like, yeah, because freelance, massage therapist, contractor, all those things, like you piecemeal your life. I was definitely doing that. And I felt like I was finally getting to a point where like I could be monetarily in the green, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
then COVID happened. And those first 2 months, I was just like laying there and just like feeling so anxious because I wasn't doing anything, but there wasn't anything to do. And it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it took me 2 months to be like, okay, this is okay. Like, I don't have to do anything. I can just make myself a nice meal, like, and I'm able to do that. And that is freaking amazing. Right. And so it like took me like 2 months to get to that place. Cause I mean, I feel very lucky that you know, I was set up enough where I didn't have to worry too much. But like, yeah, it was just like, what do I do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
There was that, and then there was like that, oh my God, I have all this time. I should do this stuff, but my
yeah,
ability to focus because
yeah,
of I was so upset and um, distracted by everything I was seeing, and I was watching the numbers of people get sick going up and up
mhm,
and up, and I had someone close to me pass away from COVID complications, and it was just like this emotional, like, um, it was impossible to focus, and I was so tired, like
yeah,
it was exhausting, and so I couldn't even like. I was in the middle of a big, big, big job in January. Things have been kind of rocky for a while. In January, it like hit, and I was doing so well, and I was like you, finally in a good spot.
yeah,
And this job was slow to terminate. Like everybody else was losing work, and I was still working like crazy. And then it
yeah.
just hit. It was
All
just
of a sudden.
yeah. And then I got laid off. My husband got laid off, and I was like, we're having the talk. We're like, okay, we have about 3 months,
Yeah.
and then we're I don't know what we're going to do. But luckily, when the everything started shutting down,
Yeah.
I qualified for the PUA assistance,
Awesome.
which has kept us kind of afloat. And then then I had that same experience you, like I should do all this stuff.
Yep.
Financially, there's nothing I can really do right now, and we've got like the very core basics, and I kind of couldn't focus. Like that was the hardest thing, like not being able to do. I
Yeah.
couldn't do anything.
Yeah, same. Just, and I still feel like I'm in that same space. So like I'm an educator too, and in August I got notes last minute that, oh, hey, we want you to teach. Um and that seems to be my life, and being an adjunct professor is yeah, we can talk about that sometime. Not right now though. um, but like everything hit at once. Like there were a couple of freelancing gigs that I had been waiting for a long time that finally came in, and I told them no and got it back later. And then teaching too, like pretty much full time for the first time ever.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm fine, because I know in my mind I have in the past been able to like just do a lot and be really good with my work, but I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I still don't have the headspace um, uh, to do as much as I was able to before.
Yeah.
Um, and because hey, dumpster fire, like see this behind me? Those aren't middle fingers. Those aren't fist unicorns. They're just these guys. I'm trying to point to the dumpster fire back here.
Oh my
Um, and and still like every single day it's just like I could feel my eyes going like because I'm like, ah, the
God.
world is, what dimension did we step into?
I know. And it just like it was like every month was like, it just kept ratcheting it up, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
There was literally a day when I was on the phone with someone walking down the street, and I was screaming and my knees buckled, and like that's how intense the feeling was. And I was like, it was actually just after George Floyd, and I was asked to go back to work at one of the places I was working at, which I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this because frankly, I don't want to work with assholes. It's pretty much what I told my manager. She's like,
Yeah.
that'll make you unrehireable. I'm like, I understand. Because that's where my head was, I was just like, I totally get it. And so that like that day I was walking home from that place, and George Floyd had happened, and I didn't realize how intense my feelings were about all of the things that were going on. And then also that um and not to get into it too much because it might take me there again, but I'm like just screaming. I'm walking down the street, like from my bus stop to my house, screaming with my knees buckling, and people are on their porches having not socially distanced tea with people, and like, as if nothing's happening. And it just like really messed me up inside. And then I went home and didn't come out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Like I just stayed home. I'm like, I
Yeah.
have enough groceries. I don't need to go outside.
I understand.
Um, how are y'all dealing with stuff? Like just like with like work and creativity. And I know you just had the Bend Design
Mhm.
conference. It was like a whole amazing conference. I want to talk about that because I wasn't able to go. And
Oh,
because I was at residency during that time.
yeah.
Um, and you had Meredith Monk among other people. And I was like, ah, how did you do that? That's amazing. But how are y'all like doing with the like the need to kind of socially distance, and also to the need to be creative, and also like I don't know, all the other things that come with this, I guess.
So I wish you could see where I'm living. I'm like, how am I going to put this? I call this affectionately the wood hood. And I'm south of town, so I'm kind of
Yeah,
outside. So I literally live on an acre of forest,
that's amazing.
and I'm pretty like there's people around me, but uh, it's a very different atmosphere, right? So I
Yeah.
don't really interact too much with the people in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I did have a woodhood moment one day. My husband and I were home, and I was like, I have to get outside. Like, I can't just be, I have to get outside. So he made me a drink in a, like, what do they call those? Thermos things.
Yeah.
And we walked around the woodhood, and he looked at me, he's like, it's like we really live here for real now. We're walking around with our drink, cruising around the neighborhood. Oh my God. It literally was like, we are officially woodhoods. So, um, and then the other hard thing was the not being able to move or exercise and move around. And because
Yeah.
my job requires me to sit for
Right.
hours, I really need, like, I need to get out. So um, I found a trail that's not very far from here where there's nobody. So I've been running on this trail. But then there were cougar sightings.
Oh,
So now
yeah.
I can't go alone.
Right.
Like, I'll go, but because I don't have a big dog or someone to go with me, I have to coordinate, which has been kind of a pain. But being out in nature is kind of saving me. But if I didn't have this around me, I think I would lose my mind. Like, I can't. Being cooped up in a house for a week or two is okay, and then after that, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. So it's been going okay. Ben Design was great. We got Meredith Monk just by asking, and this is something people really need to know.
Yes.
I have my heroes, right? That I
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mm.
And I would just think, I'd like to have them out at Ben Design because I like them, right?
Right.
And so I just emailed them, literally. Or some people I've messaged on Facebook, or some people on Instagram,
Yeah.
and they have never said no.
That's
Never,
amazing.
never. And so I just always tell people, just ask. Just ask. Like, if you have a space like you've done with Creative Music Works, and you have somebody you want to come out,
Yeah.
and you ask, they almost never say no unless it's too low of money to do
Yeah.
it. That's
Which is a whole other thing we can talk about too, about like how music venues don't have the money to pay the musicians to come play. And it's very frustrating. And what are the solutions for that? That's what I want to know. What are the solutions? Anyway, yeah.
Well, I mean, the one thing that Ben Design had to do this year was, because of COVID, there was an art space. So there's an umbrella group called Scale House,
Uh-huh.
and Ben Design was one arm, and then At Liberty is an art space, is another arm. So there's Ben Film.
Yeah.
So they've all merged, for
Nice.
survival and coming into one space.
Yeah.
But the great thing from that is that now that space has so much power.
Right.
And so I think the solution to some things in keeping the arts alive is, instead of having all these splintered groups, to unify and to come together, and
Yeah.
financially to share resources with people who have like causes or like missions.
Yeah.
And then you work together and collaborate. And as you know, that collaborative process, sometimes you get really amazing things.
Yes. And that's my dream for a lot of things, is the collaboration part. A lot of people are hesitant to like just dang right, like just like not wanting to do that, which is frustrating to me sometimes. Um, because there are just so many other ideas and so many other things that different organizations do really well. And I think people are afraid of like sometimes they're so afraid of like their mission or whatever idea they have of what a thing is will change. But I don't think that's true, because I have seen a lot, especially in publishings,
Mhm.
organizations like joining together, and they'll have like their umbrella,
Yeah.
that's the collaborative that's doing these things, but they don't fully dissolve under that umbrella. They like each still have an identity under that umbrella, but they're working
Right.
together and they're
Yeah.
still able to do their own stuff. And I'm just like, I think, I don't know, there's this weird fear that comes with that, like with these long-standing organizations who like they're just like, no, we want to do it a certain way, and it's just that's the thing, is that certain way isn't working anymore or not sustainable anymore for whatever reason. And I get really frustrated with that, because a lot of times there's not a lot of stuff I can do,
Mm.
and there are things I want to do. um, so I don't know where I was going with that. I think I'm just processing it.
Well, I think that's happening this year. Like, it's just a
Mhm.
massive restructuring across the board. And because arts have been hit so hard,
Yeah,
artists and arts organizations really have to be super creative right now to kind
yep,
of adjust and figure it out.
yeah,
And I think a lot of structures are going to go away. A lot of things are going to fall. A lot of things are going to radically change,
yeah,
especially if this goes on
yeah,
another year, even before, or maybe we're never going to go back to how it was.
yeah,
So it's kind of that accepting what's changed and then being willing to respond to what's happened in a positive
yeah.
way.
So is it okay if I ask like kind of how y'all did that? Because it's like a big thing. And like I know the Bend Design Conference happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
And you stepped in a really big way. And I think gave it a little more a little different flavor than it had in the past. Sorry,
Yeah.
Freudian slip. And I've just been watching from here, and it looks so cool. And I think I'm interested in it too because Denver, like really Denver is a small town that wants to be a big city. Um, we're city light. And it's interesting because they're like we're talking about organizations coming together and being stronger for it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and being afraid of losing their identity. And that's been my experience here with a lot of different things. um, and like, I mean, what am I trying to ask?
I think you know what you're asking me. Okay, here's what I think, Tamika. I think to be able to make that big of a change, you have to have really strong leadership.
Yeah.
You have to have a leader. Like, Ben Design has an amazing founder, Renee Mitchell,
Hmm.
who's incredibly smart and driven and incredibly, what's the word? She has a vision. I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of the right word. She can see kind of 360. She holds all these pieces.
Hmm.
And then right next to her is the co-chair, who is Martha Murray, who is equally capable. So you have these two really powerful women who are
Yeah.
kind of like, I always think of them in like the bookends, or the thing that holds everything together.
Yeah.
And then you have people like me kind of positioned like these anchoring pins in between,
Yeah.
and then everything else kind of fills in. And so if you set up a structure like that, it can really withstand a lot of things. Or
Yeah.
like, we were halfway through preparing to move Ben Design online, and we had to change the website to reflect the merging of everything because of everything that was going on while all this other stuff was happening. And it was the leadership.
Yeah.
It was the
Oh,
people in charge. They're the ones who um, bring in the right people
right.
to support them in the way they need and create the right structure, and then are able to address change in a way that benefits everybody.
Yeah.
So I think if you don't have leadership like that, you're in trouble
Yeah.
right
I
now,
agree.
especially.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Um, Something that I thought of while you were just talking, what it reminded me of. So we were talking about like I mean, we're both similar in a certain way that we've lived multiple different lives and tried a lot of different things. And also, um, the way we imbibe our education is from multiple different um, folks in multiple different fields, like multiple fields we're looking at. We're not just looking at whatever field we're
Yeah,
working in.
right.
Have you always been that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have 2 degrees. I knew that. I have two. Um, and I'm always involved in it. It seems like I'm always taking classes or in the educational process.
Yeah.
Um, yes, I've always been like that. I kind of I don't I'm kind of like you, the way my brain works, where it's very multidisciplinary
Yeah.
and it's more about achieving some specific vision and then trying to get the tools I need to achieve the thing rather than being married to any particular tool, I guess. I
Right.
just see everything as like tools.
Yeah. And I love that because I feel like not enough people are in that space. So, like, I always try to, Ooh,
What is this? I never get phone calls.
that's been
No,
happening to me too.
what is this like election crap? Hold on. Whoever that is, it's even a local call. Who the heck calls me locally?
I
Nobody.
know. Like right
Weird.
before we started recording, I had two from like, I don't
Okay,
know
what were you
what.
talking about? That must be really important.
It's like Harrison Bergeron up in here.
Tools, tools.
Tools. Yeah. So like 6 weeks of Aikido taught me
Oh yeah,
how,
Aikido.
yeah, it taught me like um really what I always want to move towards in relationships. It's just like you're always offering your hand. This is what I got from it. And if someone's coming at you with some kind of way, you just kind of help them along in that direction. But you're always offering the hand, right? I shouldn't say help them along. You're just like, okay, you're going over there. I'll let you do that. Um and like always offering the hand, right? Because they're coming
Yeah.
at you with attack. And just like, okay, are we done fighting? And then also like a semester of Tai Chi. Like obviously I haven't studied a lot of these things, but I remember things that stick with me. And one is like opening up your periphery. There's like waves, hands like clouds, and like you're opening up your periphery, but you've also stepped back to get a way broader view of what's in front of you, kind of stuff. Or like even just like improvisation, like
Mm-hmm.
um that happens in martial arts, that happens in dancing, that happens in music, and things like that. And so like I like learning from different mediums. Like I think at the residency I was just at, I talked with some artists and they were talking about conceptual artists,
Mm-hmm.
some of the stranger ones who
Uh-huh.
like who were just kind of nuts, and like their art wouldn't exist or maybe even be considered art if there wasn't someone with a camera or film documenting it. And uh they would do crazy things like testing the bounds of like mental mental stability and the human body, and stuff like that. And it's really incredible, amazing work. And like someone like me who's a writer and dabbles or writes a lot in like metaphor and simile and images and things like that, I was just like, whoa, that's like a whole other world I never even thought about to explore. um as far as like not like stealing images or anything, but thinking about it in a whole other way. And
Mm-hmm.
because writing often just happens in your head, but here we have people who are testing things that we can't necessarily express in words,
Mm-hmm.
and like not even performances, they're just doing it. And the only thing that makes it a performance is a camera. And then of course there are people who are performing, but
Did you see? I can never pronounce her last name. Marina.
oh, Abramovich.
Yes.
What is she up to now?
Well, she's a good example of that though. She's like the most. I remember one of my most favorite pieces of hers I ever saw was when she was wearing a red dress in the museum.
Yeah.
All she did was just sit with people and was present and just looked at them.
Yeah.
And she would totally close her eyes before each person would approach.
Yeah.
It was so simple and it was so powerful what she was expressing. And there was no other way that I think she could have done that that would have been so poignant. Like she just nailed it. And it was so
Right.
beautiful what she was trying to give people.
I think so too. I have mixed feelings about her.
You do,
I
tell
do.
me.
Well, I'm absolutely fascinated and enthralled by her work. And I think a realization I had, especially after talking about these other conceptual artists, is like I feel like in the beginning when she was in her youth, she used her body, like her body was kind of like uh testing uh the people around her, the people who came to her performances. And it was almost like her body was sacrifice, and she could disconnect from it in a certain way where those
Right.
performances could happen. And I feel like a lot of her work now, and I don't know a lot about her, but some of the stuff I've seen is like she's sacrificing other people's bodies. Does that make sense? Like
Interesting.
she'll be, her body will be in the performance, but I feel like she's taking other people into that, and I don't know if they're fully um uh maybe cognizant or have given total permission or whatever. I just have like, I don't know, I have weird ideas about like kind of on a spiritual level about some of those things. And like um it's kind of like the whole like the Wiccans are like um do as you will but harm ye none, and then there's the whole line of thought of do as you will, period. And I think she might be in that second camp, and I'm not saying it's wrong or anything, I'm just saying it makes me uncomfortable.
I understand. I get it. I get it.
I'm just like, oh,
I
I
get
thought,
it.
yeah. So like I just and it's just an interesting, I don't know, it was just something that um some thoughts that I had about that. Um,
Mhm.
it's kind of
Mhm.
like, I this keeps coming up for me. It's just like it's, I like to work with different energies and try to dance with them. And not all of them you can because you don't have the tools necessarily. And I love tricksters because they teach us how to, like, what kind of boundaries we have to have, if we want to have boundaries, because there's that
Mhm.
too,
Mhm.
so that we don't end up with our entrails in their mouths. Um, I mean, that's a really real thing because we have a lot of responsibility in our own self-preservation, right? Another lesson from Aikido, you're not just waiting for, you're not in your head, you're actually like, you have to be on your feet all the time and just like, oh, self-preservation, self-preservation, like, get the fuck away from me. Like,
Wow.
like that was a big lesson for me because like, maybe I was pinned on the ground and someone's foot was coming towards my face, but I was like trying to figure out, I was like, it was almost like I was waiting for permission for the next move, and you can't do that because you're gonna get your face smashed. So like, um I don't know.
That's a good point, though, that waiting for permission thing. I used to really struggle with that, like
Yeah.
being willing to take the reins of authority, and be willing to say, I want this. Like, I want to do this instead of thinking, oh, this person will let me, or this thing's holding
Yeah.
me back, or this thing's in my way, or financially X, Y, and Z. And, getting to that point of like, um, knowing that you have the right to go after, express, and
Yeah.
experience what you want, as long
Yeah.
as you're not harming anybody.
What was that change for you? Because I feel like I still struggle with that a lot.
I think what it was going through a lot of bullying and betrayals and
Mm.
kind of like being dismissed and walked all over. And I got to a point where I was angry enough that I said, that's enough. That's
Okay.
it. Done.
Yeah.
And it was like something really deep in me was like, it just was like, done.
Yeah.
And I had to think about, I had to really think about um, what part of me was putting myself in the position to create those situations, what part of me was allowing that, what part of me feared my own power, what part of me feared my own authority. Um, I used to have a very difficult time being able to even speak in groups or speak
Yeah.
up or be present. Like I could do it with my body, which is why I like to dance so much because I didn't have to vocalize. But if I had to actually say it,
Yeah.
it carried like a power and a sense of authority in a way people would react and respond to me
Mm-hmm.
that made me incredibly uncomfortable. And then I just realized I'm going to have to practice this. So I
Yeah.
started doing, I spent a solid year saying yes to everything a couple of years ago, no
Yeah.
matter how scary it was. And then um, I started practicing in groups, really speaking up. Because normally, like if we were talking and my brain runs like you miles, 100 miles an hour, and I have a bazillion thoughts, but I'm just going to kind of hang out and listen, you
Yeah.
know? And then so I had to break that habit of like knowing when I had something to say and I really should say it and not hold back.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of practice because it was really uncomfortable. I mean, I would have like a whole night of cringing and analyzing. I'd be like, ah, we are walking through the house. I'd be like, oh God, oh, I just thought about it again. And Greg would be laughing at me, and I'm like, ah. And I'm like, oh my God, oh, I can't believe I said that. He's like, I'm just, and it's so stupid. Like, it's so stupid. Nobody cares, right?
Right. Right.
So it's some old conditioning, partly from the way I was raised,
Yeah.
partly from working in tech culture,
Yeah.
which really dominates, and partly from just some really crappy experiences where I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like um, I had the right to be seen or even exist sometimes. So now I've worked a lot of that out just through sheer forcing myself to be totally uncomfortable and intentionally putting myself in situations that brought that up.
Awesome.
Because, there's just that point where it's like, you're not going to move forward, or I knew I'm
Yeah.
not going to move forward. I could see what I want, and there's no way I'm going to
Yeah.
get it if
Yep.
I keep doing this.
And I feel like that's where I am right now.
No, but you look like you're doing it. Like I keep saying, like, okay, one, the Patreon page has happened.
How long did it take me? When did you tell me to do that? Like a year ago?
Year and a
2 years.
half. But it doesn't matter. It happened. It happened. That's
And
huge.
that is a really scary thing for me because like it's just like I even told my partner a couple days ago, I'm like, I feel like I'm begging. But that's the thing is like and we have these conversations all the time. It's like we contribute a lot of work um for free on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also like I think so let me back up a little bit. Last summer over COVID, part of what kept me afloat is a couple of friends reached out and hired me to do some work. And they showed me that I actually had skills that were worth getting paid for. And so my rent and some food and stuff was paid for from one gig. And it just really opened my eyes. And it was just someone who remembered, and they wanted me to do some, what was it? They wanted me to edit their work for, my brain's going blank, so I guess I'm not. Anyway, like it paid my rent. And I was like, I've been doing this work a lot for like nonprofits and other individuals and stuff for free. And like, I just didn't think it was of value, or even my point of view in that situation. And then I got hired to do some other work in the similar vein too. And it was really interesting. I was just like, oh, this is work that's worth something. Or like poetry postcards, I started doing those. And I was doing them on and off, just kind of like, not really serious about it. But yeah, it helped me to pay for my bills and stuff a couple of months. And I was just like, it was a really big eye opener. The way I was doing it wasn't really sustainable, but it helped me, survive this. And people wanted to help, and like they wanted these. And I think for a lot of people, they it was something, receiving something in the mail is a lot different than it ticking down your feed on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I know I was just trying to figure out like, how can I connect with people, because like usually I'm like an introvert or whatever, but I'm just like, no, I really need people though. Like I started realizing like, how do I do that? And people found value in these things, and that felt really good. And then also just believing in myself with like, on my Patreon, I actually have a section for supporting other people, so other writers and artists. And I've been thinking about this so long. That's why it's taken me so long, because it's like, how do I kind of balance like my little bit of guilt, for asking for people to support me for different things, and also the want to contribute to my communities. And as a writer and an artist, a lot of times, we don't get paid for a lot of the work we're doing. We're always told, oh, you'll get good attention or whatever. And even for an interview, it takes me many, many hours to put together an interview, like to interview the person, to transcribe it, to edit it so they don't sound like a fucking fool in the publication. And also myself, you know what I mean? Like I gotta make sure I'm asking good questions and stuff. So there's some editing that's involved there, because we talk with ridiculousness. And it takes hours. That's hours of work. Um, so I want to be able to have people, also help with those efforts, because I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well,
Um,
I mean, but I think about this a lot. Artists give a lot all the time,
yeah,
and I think maybe some people are unconscious of it, but I mean, we make the world beautiful,
yeah,
in a variety of ways, and we enrich people's lives all the time. And I think money is kind of seen in a way that is incorrect because it's an exchange. It's
yeah.
just a symbol for exchange, and people get their emotions all wrapped up in it and around it. And
Mhm.
it. I just think that supporting people like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of guilt and shame around money. There's a lot
Yes.
of ideas about you have to earn it in a specific way. You have to do certain things. Certain things are valid, certain things are not valid. But these are just
Yeah.
made up rules. An exchange is an exchange. And people, if you actually think about it, people pay for all kinds of weird stuff all the time,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So this like weird thing that artists can have about not valuing themselves or feeling like they don't deserve to be paid or it's not worth money or they should do it for free. Really, it's a mindset that goes with devaluing people. And I just think
Mhm.
thinking about money as an exchange. And I personally, when I see a Patreon with someone doing great work who's trying to get their star and get their thing going, it gives me
Yeah.
joy. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give you $5.
It's
And
funny.
I would so rather give you $5, than some of the other stuff my money is going to. So, I mean, there,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot about money and perspective that needs a change.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I have a lot of friends who are like punk rock friends, and they're just like burn all the money, and I'm like, but I'm not comfortable with being a crust punk, so like I would like to have a house and a shower. I like those things very much. Um, like yes, and also no.
But well,
Like
okay, I get it, but money gives you choices and options,
yes,
right? And like
yes,
you, I I get it. I get the rejection of it. I get the rebellion. I totally get it.
I do
However,
too. Yeah,
I get it, but but I want to have the ability to have some freedom and some choice in my life.
yeah,
And if you rebel too hard, or you reject the structure too much because it's
yeah,
corrupt, you end up
yeah,
hurting yourself. So
yeah,
it's like, how do you operate within that structure so that
yeah.
it's healthy and life affirming?
Right. I definitely want, yeah, I want to be on the life affirming side,
Me too.
especially now. That was one thing I wanted to add too about the thing that artists do, is that I think a lot of us remind people to see and look and ask questions and feel. Like, you know, there's always that question rolling around, like, oh, what's the importance of the humanities? And the short answer is it makes us better people, is like what comes up. And I don't think that's an accessible answer for most people, because I think most people need to have an actual experience of why. You know what I'm saying? Like why should I pay attention to this? Why is this art? Like why is it important? And we see it all the time in like high schools and junior highs where they're trying to take those programs away from the schools. Like even
Yeah,
when I was in school, like it's been a long time thing. It's like we don't need these things. We don't need the languages. We don't need the arts. We don't need blah blah blah. And it's a bunch of bull crap. Because like what else are we doing? Like we're plugging into a computer, or we're, you know, plugging into some kind of wheel for someone else's purposes, but what actually gives us purpose? You know what I mean?
that's
Um,
right.
and I wish I definitely want to see a world where, um, you know, us who are creating are not being taken advantage of all the freaking time. Because it happens even sometimes, even when you're getting paid well, it's like a lot of your agency gets taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an important thing to talk about, because I think you've been very adamant about like the way that you've wanted to work and stuff as, you know, someone who's hired to do a lot of different kinds of like design work and animation and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself. Like, yeah, I mean, some of my clients are some clients, they're big corporations, and there are a lot of
Yeah.
cogs in the wheel, and
Mhm.
I am like low on the totem pole, and um, it can be worked really hard, um, if I don't stand up for myself, or I don't establish my working boundaries, and be willing to say no to things, even if it's a lot of money, because I know that it's going to cause great suffering.
Yeah.
you know? And so maybe that month, if nothing else comes in, it means I eat a little less, or,
Yeah.
I pull back on some things. But my dignity, my happiness, my health,
Mhm.
my mental well being, um, all come into play when I make choices about how I work. And
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to sleepwalk through life and to
Yep.
just feel like you're a victim to X. But really, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is that willingness to honor, respect myself, know
Yeah.
I have value and worth just as much as a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
And that just because someone holds a lot of power does not mean that I don't too.
Right.
Um, and I don't need to be the victim in a circumstance anymore. I can make choices, and my life may look a little different because of that, but that's a choice, right? I could have a giant house and a really nice car
Yeah.
instead of a piece of crap that I drive. Right? I
Or
could
no
have,
car like me.
I mean, well, if you saw where I lived, you would understand why I have a
Yeah. Yeah.
car. Yeah, you can't walk to anything. That's the hardest part about being out here. But, it's like there are sacrifices involved. There are certain, how can I put this? There are certain payoffs to following a certain path and going down a certain track, and there are guarantees of things that you will have. And to some people, that is really important.
Yeah.
But I think if you're the kind of person where that's not important, or other things are more important, there's a balance, in that. And there's some sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in that camp too.
Yeah.
Um, and I do recognize one of my jobs that was pretty much coaching folks to six figures where they're going to be a six-figure earning cog in a wheel. And cool, that's what some people want. Um, and I felt very troubled by that realization. Um, um, uh, because some of them are going to feel trapped in that, but I think
Mm-hmm.
most of them are going to be fine with it. And it was interesting to me because I'm on the other end, like social justice and
Yeah.
equity
Right.
and why those
Yeah.
things are important,
Yeah.
and I have very strong feelings about them. Um, and do I want to work in places where I'm giving most of my energy to folks who are moving in that direction, or do I want to pull away and possibly suffer some consequences as far as my what reliability in certain areas of my life goes, or or whatever, but to have more time and energy for you know the people who are close to me, the communities that I want to interact with and be in, and also the kind of work that I want to create and attract. Um, and that's really hard. It's just like, okay, work's coming in, great, and I'm great now. I can eat, and I mean, I can always eat, but also not realizing what the trade-off was until I did, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that's that funny thing of like, if you go in a certain trajectory and you're trying to fit yourself into something and fit
Yeah.
into somewhere you don't belong, there is a emotional sacrifice, I think, that people don't understand until they're in there for a while.
Hmm.
And I guess I think that having that perspective of like, at the end of my life, is this going to matter?
Yeah, that it was like an earworm. So I went to residency and it was a little messy because we were supposed to have internet, but there wasn't internet.
Oh.
And so that kind of uh, worked against some of the obligations I had. And some folks were willing to work with me with that, and some folks were very angry, and that's fine, because we didn't expect that. But what that was the earworm that was in my head the whole time, was just like, what's more important? What's more important? Like this job that is not guaranteed to me, that's just like gonna pay for this 4 months of life, or my work, you know, what's more important? Um, Actually sanity and seeing green things in the forest, or being scattered in the city and just spinning my wheels, and for what, how long is it going to be before I'm able to come up for air and recover from that, to be able to get back to my work. So I kept asking myself that, and it was just like, um that was hard. And then I came out of it like, I need to be able to be on that side of it more, um, no matter what I look like. Uh, I feel like this is more important. Like these things that I want to do, um, that's what I want to do. And I need to be really fucking stubborn about it. Like I've been stubborn about
Mm-hmm.
other things in the past. So I don't know. Yeah.
Huh. I agree. I mean, and hopefully what happens is then you attract like people that are
Yeah.
like you to come in and join forces with you and support
Yeah.
you, so that it's not so hard,
Yeah.
so that you're not so out there by yourself.
Yeah.
But I do find those people are out there. They're just not that common, right?
Which is interesting. I feel like you find a lot of them, and so I remember. Okay, I remember. So way back in the days of working at Starbucks. I don't know
Oh,
why I
where
worked
I
at
first met
Starbucks.
you.
Yeah. I was the bitter bean. I'm the penultimate bitter bean. Some of the folks came down from your work and were like, what's your deal? One person said to me, and I was just like, inside, I'm like, you kind of suck. I just like that's how I felt inside, because like I'm just like, what am I? And I was like, what am I doing here? But I couldn't get out of it because it was a reliable job and I knew what income I was going to make and I had insurance, blah, 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 all these things. And there were these people coming down and they were just like happy and I was really resentful. They were happy in a way like, their biggest complaint was something like, uh, I'm supposed to get a 15% discount on this ski pass and I'm so angry. And they're like downloading this because they won't give me this 15% discount. I'm like, what? People are dying.
I know.
I don't want to talk with you about this. Like that's where my head was. And so I should never have worked in customer service probably ever. And then you came down. I'm like, whoa, you're like totally different. Like you're like actually, I don't know, I shouldn't say real person, all of them are real people. We're all real people. But like I just felt like, and I felt intimidated too because like,
What?
well, because I felt like this very like strong beautiful presence, and very artistic and like very cerebral, and I wanted to be your friend, but I didn't think I was very cool. I also
Oh,
was,
Tamika.
I no, and I was also hyper aware that I was the bitter bean at that Starbucks, and I was just like, I probably made everyone mad in this building.
No, I liked you immediately. Like I came to be like, there's Tamika. We would always talk. It was like an
Yeah,
instant connection,
we did. It was really cool, and I was just like, I remember also you'd be going away. I'm like, no, don't go. Like, I was feeling like, please don't go. Don't leave me with all these
So,
jerks.
yeah, you met the art department, came downstairs. Yeah.
And then I also wanted to give a shout out to holy crap, my brain is not working. There's someone else's name in that place, but he does the podcasts about
Gabe,
creatives. Yeah, Gabe Ratcliffe.
Rateliff. I
Right.
never say his last name
I'm
right.
sorry, Gabe. I
Gabe,
didn't remember us.
Rateliff.
Yeah, I feel like he is one of those people.
He is. He was. We worked right next to each other. We're in the same area. It was like all the creative people. Yeah.
Oh wow. And
Yeah.
then Doe or Do or uh I'm obviously saying his name wrong, but he does a lot of like education about
Christo.
Christo. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I feel like he's probably one of those people.
Oh
Um,
yeah. He was another one where I just thought it would be fun to have him at Ben Design, and I messaged him, and literally, I'm like, this is a shot in hell, but I'm just gonna do it. And in 2 seconds, he wrote back and said yes. And I
wow.
literally fell off my chair. I was like, wow, Jesus! It was so fast, um, and I was so nervous about him being in Bend, Oregon, and
Oh,
uh, I was setting up. So I do the exhibit design for Bend Design, and I was in there and I was setting it up, and I hadn't slept in, I don't even know at that point, a couple days, like right before it's crunch time, and I'm working with the team and we're building stuff out, and I haven't showered. I mean, it's a bad scene, right? And we were all just like grouchy. And they all left to go for lunch, and so I'm in there finishing up. I turn on and Christo walks in the door, and I was like, holy shit. And he was so nice, and he was so, um, his presence online, he's so smart and he's so intense, and he's like, the way his mind works is like a machine, it's like so organized, and he was so kind.
Yeah.
And that's part of that thing too. Like, I was surprised how much of one of the, I call them the heart tribe people,
Yeah.
um, the
Oh,
people who are building society and have compassion and drive and want to see people succeed.
right. Yes. Oh my gosh. Um, I love that. Yeah, because it's really like even in the I do feel like that's starting to happen more and more. And in my community too, here. And I always call them like angels in the network.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they're doing stuff to be seen. They're doing stuff like, hey, I see you and I want you to know, you know, like someone just reached out and just helped me with a resume for a whole other job I didn't know I could do, because I've been piecemealing my life and in survival mode. So I picked up a lot of skills and I don't know how to like talk about them. And I think a lot of creative people, no, I know a lot of creative people and artists and stuff have this same issue. Like they've done all these spectacular, amazing things and they don't have a resume. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have a CV, and they don't have it documented somehow, for this other world that it's important to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some of them are needing to do that now,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, yeah, I like that, the heart tribe.
The heart
With
tribe.
and those are the people that I want to hang out with, but and also learning how to not have so much grit in my teeth about folks who aren't heart tribe, because like you can't
That's
control,
a good point.
yeah, you can't control who's in your community. We're still in community with each other.
Yeah.
um and like I said before, like I really like tricksters because they remind me what kind of boundaries I need to have.
That's right.
Because like it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring those folks. It my goal personally is learning how to work with those folks, and that also obviously involves a lot of self knowledge and self respect too. It's just like, this is where my boundaries are. This is what I can handle. This is what I can give, and this is what I can take to a point, or whatever, like all of these different things. Or like, I think when you're thinking like hiring manager, I was going to say CEO, but the CEO doesn't make those kinds of decisions. The hiring manager or the human resources folks, they have a broader picture of like, how is this unit going to work for this mission? And so like, maybe all those people don't jive with each other, or maybe the hiring manager doesn't even really like those folks, but they have certain skills that are really powerful that work for that unit to make the whole thing a success. So like that's my goal, is to move more into that kind of mindset as far as community goes. Because I think before I've always been shooting myself in the foot, like I don't want to work with those people because of blah 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's selfishness and self-servingness and things like that. But that's the thing too that I had to realize is like, as creative people and artists, how much responsibility do you have outside of doing your work? Like if you're creating a thing, like why not be dedicated to that one thing? And that should be okay, I mean, some people are real annoying and whatever, but like still, that they're they have a right to like create a thing and be about that thing. They don't have to like want to like build community or blah 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 or whatever. um for some reason I'm in that boat, but they don't have to be. And so that, I think that's the direction that I want to move in, is like, not being so stubborn about like, oh well, that person is just totally all about themselves and they're just insufferable about it, because they're still adding value and they're still provoking thought and all of these other things. But yeah, I don't know. I'm talking myself in a circle.
Well, I think along that line, I mean, we can all learn so much from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good that we're all different.
Yes.
It's important that we're all different, and because too much of the same is not good. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not good. And I think, like, for example, Krista is a really good example. In many ways, um, I the way I think you and I operate would probably be completely opposite of
Mm-hmm.
the way he operates.
Yeah.
He's a very different way he structures his thinking. But the way he operates within a community or the way he operates within society is very similar to the way you and I operate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we can learn to appreciate each other and understand we live together on
Right.
this planet,
Right.
we can learn a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably a good place to come to a
I
closure
think
of
that's
some
important.
sort. I think it's important too. Um, do you um I don't know if that got lost. I don't know
Oh,
what part got
it's okay.
lost.
It's okay.
My internet flashed at me, your internet connection is unstable. I'm like, why now though? Why now?
Well, because we're talking about the planet. No, because, I was just saying that it's just that thing of like, we're all really different and we all have something to contribute and we can
Hmm.
all learn from each other if you're open. And some
If you're
people
open.
aren't open, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's where those boundaries come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you. I feel really good about this. And also like, yeah, all kinds of feelings. Is there anything else you want to add?
Hmm. Uh, I was thinking too, another person who's been really, I think is a really great example of somebody who
Mhm.
reinvents himself, and has struggled and then builds community is Ivar Zeal.
Brazil.
He is the founder of Denver Digerati, which was
Oh,
Supernova, and
yeah.
he have the Plus Gallery. I don't know if you ever went there, before, right before I moved, and all that the art galleries were bulldozed,
Uh,
and it became something totally different over towards Five Points area. But he, multiple times lost everything, really put all of his heart and soul into what he was doing. And then he keeps learning and growing and building communities. And he's an excellent example of a really good, strong leader. And then he has his anchors that he's working with, and people are filling in. And
awesome.
I think finding those people who know how to bring people together, who know how to work with community, who understand boundaries, who understand artists, who can bring in the financial people, who know how to, what's the word? Not shapeshift, but work, across the aisle.
Yeah,
Those are the great foundation builders. And then you have the artists and the other people who come in and connect the dots.
yeah,
If we're like this big functioning, mechanism, if we can work together, that can create wonderful things,
yeah,
or really terrible things.
yeah. And all the while we're learning.
And all
Oh,
the while we're learning. This is a big experiment. But I really respect your thoughts and ideas about boundaries. It's so important. And thinking about who do you really want to be, and
yeah,
what do you want to be left with at the end of your life, and where are you spending the majority of your time, and how do you restructure your life so you can live it in a way that feels good. Like,
yeah,
it's so simple, but it's so important.
yeah.
It doesn't
Um,
need to just be like you live to pay bills.
oh, thank goodness for that, Like, I remember that's what everyone was telling me, and a lot of people still tell me that. And I'm like, I really think there's another way. I need there to be another way.
Well, but don't you think, like, if enough people make that decision that there is another way, then the way will happen.
Yes, I do. I really do. Because, I think a lot of us lay aside our true gifts and strengths and, for a paycheck. I've definitely done that multiple times in my life.
Yeah.
And you live two separate lives then, or three, or
Or
four, depending. Yeah. Yep. Depending on, what you're trying to do. So, and I think that compartmentalization like is really destructive to our, our mental landscape. Um, Not all of us are equipped to do that. I think some people are fine with it, but not all of us are able to really do that. Like, for example, if I have a set of morals and my ethics um, align with wherever I'm working, and so when I'm working there, those ethics are a certain thing, but they don't, my morals are a little bit different. Like, how do you compartmentalize that and stay healthy? And I think some people can, but I think a lot of people cannot, like, extricate their morals from, the ethics of wherever they're working, if they don't align. Um, and I know that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's just like, I am so stubborn that I really don't think I can work in a place where um, I am, and I just had a bunch of other thoughts about all kinds of arguments from all different sides of that idea. Um, that I mean, I think we're looking at in our political landscape right now, where people are also saying the same thing I'm saying. So I don't know. I might have just got myself in a little bit of. I'm gonna have to think about that for a while. Um,
Oh, well, I mean, I think the thing is, if you can be open enough, it's okay for people to be different. It's okay for people to have different ethics,
yeah,
as long as they keep the ethics to their own self, right? They're not forcing their
the imposition. Yeah,
ethics or their morals on somebody else, because it doesn't belong to somebody else, it belongs to them.
yeah,
And taking the responsibility that you own your own decisions about what's important and how the life should operate and how life is seen. And it's not really fair to make those decisions for
yeah.
anybody else.
Thank you for that. I think that's the piece that I was missing. Because I was just like, yeah, there are a lot of different political ideologies, a lot of different religious ideologies, a lot of different things coming together, and they're all going to say the same thing. Like, my morals are sound and important, and so are my ethics, and therefore this is the right thing. And that was the part that I was missing. That piece about imposing it on other folks, and just coming from a standpoint of like, I am right. And I think that was what was happening in my brain, is like, I was doing that in my brain. It's like, I am comfortable with my morals and ethics, and yeah, and so that's why it was breaking apart, because I was just like, no, there are other people who are going to say the same exact thing, and
Mm-hmm.
their morals and ethics, oh, they're so different than mine are.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I
um
mean, yeah, there's quite a range.
yeah, and like, how do I learn how to work with those folks, and that's, I've definitely had to think about that a lot this year. Um,
Me too.
yeah,
Me too. And I especially think you probably, oh, there's just so much.
yeah. There's
There's so much.
so much. Yep.
There's so much.
Well, I want to thank you for this talk.
Of
It's
course.
so good to talk and see with you, or to talk with you and see you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate these talks. I also really appreciate just like, you know, you do a lot of cheerleading for me. And I really appreciate that. And a lot of times it comes in times when I'm just like, oh, what am I doing? I'm a hack. And so I just wanted to say that. And I love watching the work that you're doing.
Oh.
I think you're freaking amazing. And I am such a fangirl.
Thank you, Tamika.
Yeah. And I want to close this up with like, how do people keep tabs on the work you're doing? Or I think keep tabs is kind of weird, but like, how do they support the work you're doing? Or even and yeah, how do they support the work you're doing? Because you're an
Oh,
artist too. You're an amazing
yeah.
artist as well, and like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm walking in both worlds. Um, Yeah, well, I'm actually revamping my website right now as we speak. I have someone helping me with that. So Cromonti is the main website of where I do a lot of my design work,
Mm-hmm.
and my artwork is going to be taking more precedence there shortly.
Awesome.
Um, and then I also am starting I have like a, it's going to be a short form sort of interview podcast thing. I have 5 interviews already, and I'm teaching myself Adobe Audition, so it takes a little bit, but I think
Okay.
I've got it now. And that has its own Patreon page. It's called Mixed Metaphor.
Oh yeah, I know about that.
So there's that. And then I also run a local chapter of Ladies Wine and Design to support women in the design community here in Bend. So if you're in Bend, and this also includes anybody who identifies as female, non-binary, um, please come and join us. I love to talk about design and women in positions of power and the struggles we all go through. And then, of course, there is Bend Design, which you can just come. That's how you support that.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm gonna close this up and
Okay,